Hi. Welcome to Luna Listens to Books channel. If you like my channel, please like and subscribe. Now the story begins. He thought I was marrying him to secure my business. He was wrong. I was marrying him to avenge my family and destroy him. Tempest Blackwood never believed in love, only power, revenge, and survival. After her parents' mysterious murder, she strikes a deal with her ruthless rival, billionaire Noel. Sinclair. A marriage of convenience, his influence for her father's company. But when a chilling wedding day message warns that danger is closer than she thinks, Tempest is thrust into a web of lies, betrayal, and buried secrets. As she fights to uncover the truth, her growing attraction to Noel complicates everything. Is he the monster she's hunting? Or the only one who can save her? I have a proposition for you. Let's get married, I said. Noel Sinclair stared at me as though I had grown a second head. Of course, I had just barged into his office and proposed marriage without any prior appointment. Noel's lips curled up in dark amusement as he stared me down, even though he was sitting and I was standing. I'm fairly certain you know who I am, Miss Tempest. Of course, I do. Noel Sinclair of the Sinclair tech empire. And my parents' murderer. But I wasn't going to tell him that little part. I need a powerful man by my side so I can secure my father's tech company before investors successfully steal it. It was true, I needed someone like Noel as my husband. My parents had died a month ago, and those hungry sharks hadn't hesitated to jump in on my father's company. Good thing my brother and I were the only ones in his will. But my brother couldn't take over. What's in it for me, he drawled, twirling in his office chair while I leaned over with both my palms resting on the surface of his sleek black table. You need this, I began, staring straight into his eyes. You need a wife for public appearances. A woman who's up to your par. I was up to his par. In fact, my father's tech business was even higher than his, which was why we had always been rivals. The moment I came of age 13, I had been taught who our friends and foes were. The Sinclairs were at the top of that list of foes. That's why I suspected him. That's why I was certain it was him. True, he nodded softly. I need a wife for public appearances, indeed. But I don't know why it should be you, he said, staring up at me. I chuckled. I am as power-driven as you. Ambitious and smart. If you're not looking for all that, then I don't know what you would be looking for. Noel chuckled, his voice deep. Your father and I were rivals, Miss Tempest. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes. I answered without hesitation. I was going to do this. I was going to ruin him the way he had ruined me by murdering my parents. By making me lose my brother. All right then, he said, picking up the emergency telephone by his side. He tilted his head toward the seat beside me, and suddenly realized I had been standing this whole time. I sat slowly as he said, prepare a marriage agreement contract, Kelvin. I'll send you the details. He said the last part while staring at me too intensely. I cleared my throat. I hadn't expected him to be this fast. I had expected him to think it over and get back to me the next day or so. But then again, he was making his incoming death easier and quicker, and I had never been more grateful. Noel offered me coffee. Normally, I wouldn't have accepted, not knowing if he had poisoned it, but I had watched him make it, and I was thirsty as hell. An hour later, a younger-looking man than Noel knocked and slipped inside the office, staring at me first before his eyes went to Noel. He dropped 2 enveloped files on the desk. My heart palpitated. I was doing this. I really was. Noel took out both files, and after reading through the agreement, which didn't particularly have anything I should complain about, we both signed each other's copy. Well then, Miss Tempest. I guess we're done, he asked, leaning back in his chair. I nodded. We are, I responded, standing up from the seat with the file. Here's my personal number in case there's anything else you'd like to say. I slid my card toward him, then nodded one last time before turning on my heels and leaving his office. So, you'll be getting married soon? Nirvana, my best friend, peered up at me from the rim of her coffee mug. Yeah, probably. I twitched my lips. I had been ready for this a week ago after the month my parents had died, but now I was all nerves. It's nothing, anyway. Shrugged. I'll play the role of a wife for fuck knows how long, then complete my mission and leave. Nirvana sighed, rolling her eyes. It's not as easy as you make it sound, Tem. That was the problem. It wasn't easy at all. I had never killed an animal, let alone a man. But I needed to do it. I had to do it. But are you certain, though? That Noel Sinclair is the one, she asked hesitantly. He is, Nirvana. I'm certain he is. All my investigations, all angles point to him. And this isn't just about my parents and avenging them, anyway. It's about my brother. too. Nirvana knew about my parents' deaths. We had been friends for 6 months. I had met her in college, and we had bonded quickly. She had told me her mother was dead and her father was in Europe, occasionally sending her funds as a means of checking up on her. My mother had liked her a lot and taken her in as her own daughter, playing the mother figure for her. I had told her the day my parents died. We had gone over to the venue of the incident. It was nighttime. A big truck had smashed into their Porsche. The aftermath was so insane that I knew they couldn't have survived. But another thing was my twin brother. He had been their driver that night while I had stayed with Nirvana. But when we reached the scene, Tyler was nowhere to be found. The driver's seat was clean and spotless, as though no one had been driving them. There were only 2 theories: either Tyler had fled the scene before the accident, or he had been kidnapped. But then again, I knew for a fact that Noel wouldn't kidnap my brother, so I would obviously go with the former. But where had Tyler fled to? Was he threatened? Did he know something about our parents' deaths? The questions remained unanswered, but I knew one thing for sure: marrying Noel Sinclair would open all those doors and answer every single one of them. It was my wedding day. A week after I'd proposed to Noel, we had worked on the invitations together, or more like, he had done all the work while I just invited those necessary. I'd invited my relatives, both from my father's and mother's side. They thought I was getting married because I was in love with Noel Sinclair. They should know better. The designer behind me fixed my veil and my blonde hair, which she had packed into a stylish wedding bun. I was beautiful, I wouldn't deny that, and I wished this beauty was for a different occasion, not signing away my life to someone who could kill me while I slept at night. But he wouldn't. I would be the first to put a knife to his throat. My, look how gorgeous you are, Nirvana chuckled as she walked inside the hotel room Noel had booked for us. She was my chief bridesmaid. Thank you. I tilted my head up to look at her with a small smile. The designer was finally done with my veil, and she helped me up from the chair. This dress is magnificent. Your husband-to-be has amazing taste, Nirvana gushed, and I rolled my eyes. Tell me about it, I sighed. I sat on the bed while the dressers slipped my stilettos onto my feet, and after everything was done, we were driven to the church. My uncle was waiting outside the chapel. I had told him to walk me down the aisle because he was the closest thing to a father I had. You look beautiful, dear, he said when I intertwined my elbow with his. Mario would be happy to see his daughter in a wedding gown. Mario, my father. He would, I whispered. The bell rang, and soft music started playing as Uncle Chase and I walked into the chapel. It was full, really, really full. Noel had played his card perfectly, making everyone believe we were actually in love and getting married for that reason. I knew why he did it. One wrong move, and the sharks would bite. We reached Noel, who stood before the altar. My veil was still over my face, but I could see him perfectly. He was handsome, with his hair gelled back and that black mole under his left eye. You look beautiful, Tempest, he complimented, and I was momentarily stunned before I remembered he was doing it for the audience. I smiled a fake sweet smile. Thank you, Noel. You look gorgeous as well. Noel chuckled low before we turned to the priest. After the whole ordeal of saying our marriage vows and putting on our rings, it was time to kiss the bride. I didn't actually think Noel was going to kiss me, but he surprised me by taking off my veil and pressing a full kiss to my lips. A sly smirk curved his lips when he pulled away. After signing marriage certificates and all the other bullshit, it was time for the reception. Noel and I rode in the same car, but it was unimaginably silent. Neither of us spoke until we reached the hotel venue for the reception. That, too, went well until it was time for the couple's dance. I had taken off my wedding gown and worn a simpler white dress. The musical band changed the song into something soft and warm. Like this was any love story. Noel wrapped his arms around my waist while I placed mine on his shoulders as we twirled to the music. He leaned down, and my heart left my body when I thought he was going to kiss me again, but he only whispered, "Didn't know you were so excited to get married to me. I mean, you literally invited all your family members." His words registered, and I scoffed, but then I chuckled knowing everyone was watching, searching for the perfect slip. "Who wouldn't be eager to get married to you, Noel?" I asked in a whisper. "You are all money. I'm certain my aunties are very excited that I'm getting married to you." Noel laughed a low sound, and before I could register the fact that I enjoyed the sound of his laughter, a gunshot echoed outside. And then screams. "Take cover!" Noel yelled before he left my side. But then men in black everything and masks filtered into the room. Bullets flew, screams made my head almost explode. Everyone rushed to take cover, though some guests were hit but not in vital places. Me? I still stood in absolute shock, unmoving, until Noel rushed to me and ducked, bringing both of us to the ground. I only just realized he had saved me from a bullet that had landed dangerously close to my feet. Noel was yelling, but his voice had never sounded so distant. Not only were the men in black shooting, but Noel's men, too. When everything died down and Noel lifted me up, leaning me against the wall, a piece of paper before me caught my eye. I crawled to pick it up. When I unfurled it and read its contents, my breathing and my whole body paused altogether. "Hello, Tempest. Happy lovely wedding day." The ride back to Noel's house was silent. Too silent. And even if I liked noises and loud places, this just wasn't the occasion. Someone was after me. Or Noel. Or maybe both of us. But I knew very well this person was looking for me. At me. And I also knew this person wasn't Noel. Noel didn't know about the little paper, though. The moment I spotted him coming, I had squeezed it and thrown it away immediately, mixing it with all the food and dirt on the ground. What a wedding day. The moment the driver parked the car inside the garage, I opened the door and slipped out. A minute later, I heard the soft sound of his footsteps. I wasn't sure if Noel noticed my change in mood, and even if he did well not to ask. Noel walked ahead of me and led us to the elevator that took us up to his penthouse. My breath caught when I saw the interiors. I'd been born and bred with money, but Noel was a whole other brand of rich, and he did well to show it. I thought father was richer than the Sinclairs. "Where's my room?" I turned to him and asked when we stood in the sitting room. Noel stared at me for a beat, then asked, "What happened in there?" I blinked, confused for a moment, before it clicked. "It's nothing," I answered, gulping and turning away from him. He closed the distance between us in 2 strides and turned my face back to his with a finger under my chin. "It's not nothing if you look like life just drained out of you." "What did the paper read, Tempest?" A chill raced down my spine. He had seen me read the letter. "It's nothing," I said firmly, but it came out choked as my throat had suddenly gone painfully dry. Noel took a deep breath in, his fingers still holding my chin in place. "Don't tell me fucking nothing, Tempest." "I saw you saw me what?" I veiled. "That isn't part of our deal, Noel. Have you forgotten that we each mind our business when we're not in public?" "Now, where's my room?" I hissed. His clenched jaw told me he wanted to say more, but he just took a deep breath in and closed his eyes. "Follow me," he ordered, then turned neck on his heels, leading us up the stairs. I followed immediately, and we came to a stop before one of the doors. "This is your room, and this is mine," he said, gesturing to the two doors beside each other. His room was beside mine. He was making this way too easy. "Food is in the kitchen downstairs in case you get hungry." He turned and touched his room's doorknob but stopped, turning back to face me. "You'll have to cook, though. The maids don't stay until night." He then opened his door and slipped inside. I did the same with a sigh. I took off the wedding dress and everything else, had a cool bath, then came back to bed. Sleep didn't come immediately, though I was still thinking about the letter and whoever might be watching me. The person was perhaps close yet far. I might know them but not at all. When sleep finally came, nightmares escorted it as well. The usual nightmares I had every night, followed by sleep paralysis. Since my parents' deaths, I was never the same Tempest Blackwood they left. I was a broken one. One left with grief and loss and nightmares. By 8 o'clock in the morning, I was ready for business. Over time, Noel had stacked my wardrobe with things I liked: professional dress shirts and skirts, even though I was just 21. If my mother were to see me, she'd tell me to live a little and not be so uptight like father. She had never liked father teaching me and Tyler about business, but I guess they came in handy anyway. Standing before the wardrobe-sized mirror plastered onto my closet, I took a deep breath in and released it, tucking my hair behind my ear on both sides. Then, I slipped into my loafers, grabbed my handbag, and exited the room. Of all the things I expected coming out of my room on the first day living with Noel, it wasn't him sitting on the couch in the living room acting like an actual husband waiting for his wife. He turned at the sound of my steps and slowly rose from his chair when I approached him. "Good morning," he greeted, his voice deep. And I almost forgot the real purpose of marrying him. Almost. "Morning," I responded, my voice harsher than it should be. "I'll be bringing my car in today." It was still in the apartment I'd purchased after father's death. It hadn't been sold yet, and the landlord was taking good care of it. "There's no need," Noel stated. "There are plenty of cars for you to use here anyway." He paused, his brows furrowing. "And you'll need to start going out with bodyguards." I scoffed. "Bodyguards, plural? Please don't start with that. I'm not going anywhere with bodyguards. I didn't when I was still my father's child, and I definitely won't now." He stepped closer into my space. It seemed he liked doing that a lot. "Probably because when you were still your father's child, you were immensely protected and you didn't even know it," he growled. "You will go out with bodyguards because I don't know the meaning of the fuckery that happened yesterday, and I'm not letting anything happen to my wife." His nostrils flared dangerously as he spoke, and I didn't even realize when I nodded. Maybe it was because of his dominance. As much as I'd been a strong woman, I'd also been a seriously obedient one. "Okay," I muttered. "That'll be for later, though. You're riding with me this morning." I narrowed my eyes at him. "No. There is no no, darling. You will ride with me this morning." He chuckled, then leaned down to whisper in my ear, appearance purposes. "Did you forget? Wife." He pulled back with a smirk, then brushed past me, walking out of the house. With a heavy sigh, I followed suit. Noel's Range Rover stopped directly in front of Blackwood Tech's entrance. A swarm of paparazzi waited outside, their cameras flashing even before the doors opened. I took a deep breath and moved to open the door, but Noel caught my wrist. When I turned to him, he shook his head. "The bodyguard will AET it," he said. As if on cue, the door was opened from outside. We stepped down together, and I almost reeled from the bright lights. It wasn't my first time in front of the paparazzi, but back then, I had been little. Now, I was older, and they had a million more reasons to care. "So what do we do now?" I whispered through my teeth, making sure my lips barely moved. We make them believe, Noel murmured, turning slightly toward me. Then, he leaned down. My heart leaped at the thought that he might kiss me, but instead, he whispered in my ear, "Your ride and new bodyguard will come over later." Then, he pulled away and pressed a kiss to my cheek. The paparazzi swooned, their questions blending into a frenzy of noise. Noel. Is the marriage real? Tempest. Is Blackwood Tech merging with Sinclair Tech Empire? Is it true you signed a prenup? I ignored them. Noel climbed back into the car. But he didn't drive off until my bodyguard ensured I was safely inside the building. Good morning, Mrs. Tempest Sinclair, the employees greeted as I walked in. I barely reacted. It was no secret now my marriage with Noel Sinclair had spread far and wide, reaching the ears of everyone who needed to know. I nodded curtly as I passed them, waving them back to their work as I stepped into the elevator. When the doors slid open on my floor, Pepe was already waiting. Pepe had been my father's right-hand man, the closest person to him in both business and life. After my parents' deaths, he had taken over the company while I grieved, keeping things running as smoothly as possible. He was also one of the few who believed, like I did, that the Sinclairs had a hand in my father's murder. Pepe's sharp eyes flicked to the bodyguard behind me, then back to me. I gave him a curt nod before we walked into my office, my father's old office. The familiarity of it hit me like a wave. The polished mahogany desk. The towering bookshelves. The same scent of old paper and cologne that always reminded me of my father. I turned to the bodyguard. You'll have to wait outside, wouldn't it be better? As you wish, madam. He bowed and stepped out, shutting the door behind him. With a sigh, I lowered myself into the leather chair and looked up at Pepe. Let's get to work. Pepe wasted no time. He pulled out a tablet, swiping through several reports before handing it to me. We've been keeping an eye on Sinclair Enterprises, just as you instructed, he said. I skimmed through the documents, nodding. And? Your husband has a major investment coming up. He's been discreet about it, but we managed to get intel. A technology merger worth billions. If it goes through, it'll put him in an even stronger position in the industry. I leaned back, absorbing the information. And if it doesn't go through? Pepe's lips curled into a slow smile. Then he suffers a major financial hit. Not enough to break him, but enough to rattle his confidence and shake his investors. Perfect. I set the tablet down and folded my hands on the desk. I want it gone. Pepe didn't blink. I already have a plan. We'll send an anonymous tip to the media, fabricate a scandal around the investment. If we hit the right nerves, investors will start pulling out before they even sign the contracts. Do it. Pepe gave a firm nod, already pulling out his phone. I watched as he made the call, speaking in hushed tones. It was done in minutes. It's in motion, he said, slipping the phone back into his pocket. I exhaled, a slow smirk forming. This was only the beginning. By the time it reached afternoon, the news was already catching fire. Breaking news, rumors surround Noel Sinclair's upcoming investment. Insider sources claim it's in trouble. I turned off my phone. A knock sounded at my office door. Come in, I called. Nirvana strolled in, her usual mischievous smirk in place. She tossed her purse onto my couch before plopping down beside me. So, she drawled, is it you? I didn't hesitate. It was me. Nirvana chuckled, shaking her head. Damn, Errol. You don't waste time. I leaned back in the couch. Arms crossed. I'm not here to play, Nirvana. He's not just going to suffer. He's going to pay with blood. Her grin widened. Now that is the Tempest I know. I reached for the glass of water on my desk, taking a slow sip. This is only the first step. There's more to come. Nirvana propped her legs onto the coffee table. You're really going for the kill, huh? I met her gaze, my expression unreadable. They killed my family. I'm just returning the favor." The room fell silent for a beat. Nirvana studied me carefully before nodding in approval. "Well, whatever you need, I'm in. Just say the word." A faint smile ghosted my lips. "Good. Because this is only the beginning. And I didn't think it would be ending soon." Days later, and the scandal surrounding the Sinclair tech empire still hadn't died down. The media was relentless, investors remained hesitant. I'd barely seen him in those 5 days. Noel had been out constantly, doing everything in his power to salvage his empire. I felt victorious. Truly. But the satisfaction came with a bitter restraint. I wanted him to know the truth, to understand that his own wife was the architect of his downfall. But revealing it now would ruin everything. I stepped out of my room and descended the grand staircase. This time, I was dressed in an elegant emerald green gown that hugged every ounce of my curves. My personal bodyguard was already waiting by the car, the key in hand. He greeted me with a nod, and I returned the gesture before leading us out of the penthouse and into the garage. "How is your master?" "I haven't seen him in days." "He's doing all right, madam. You shouldn't worry." I almost scoffed. Like I was worrying. The burly man opened the car door, and I slid inside without another word. Today, I was headed to my mother's fashion company, Dress and Design. It was overwhelming, being only 21 and managing 2 massive companies, but I would do it over and over again for them. When we arrived, the employees greeted me just as they did at Blackwood Tech, with nervous admiration. I hadn't been here in over a month, and I'd instructed the director, my mother's longtime friend, to ensure that every designer prepared a piece for me to review. There were too many employees, and I needed to make cuts. Mother was too kind. She kept anyone who so much as wrapped fabric around a mannequin. I, however, wasn't so kind. But I wasn't cruel either. Only to those who deserved it. The workers had their designs lined up, ready for my review. I walked slowly, my bodyguard following behind me, taking in each dress with sharp, perceptive eyes. Left to right, I observed, until I came to a stop before one atrocity. I wasn't wrong when I said my mother let just anyone in. I knew fashion better than tech. And I knew when something was unsellable. This was an insult to the industry. My gaze lifted to the woman who designed it. She was older than me. Maybe in her late 20s, and she shifted nervously under my stare. "Come to my office at 12 noon, I said coolly before moving on. I repeated the same message to 5 more individuals before making my way up the vintage-style staircase to my mother's office. Cynthia, the previous director, wasted no time catching me up on everything that had happened during my absence. With my intelligence and quick thinking, I was already piecing things together before she even finished. When the clock struck 12, the first woman I had summoned knocked on my office door and stepped inside. "You asked to see me," she said, her voice careful. I nodded, gesturing for her to sit with a small, polite smile. "What is your name?" "Lorna, Mrs." she answered softly. "Lorna," I began, my tone measured. "I truly appreciate the effort you put into designing something of your own. However, it is simply unacceptable." The color drained from her face, but I didn't stop. "It is completely outside of our brand's standards, and frankly, I can't have my company associated with something so unpolished. I think it's best we part ways. You'd be better suited somewhere else." I sighed, leaning back. "You may leave." I didn't need to say the words "you're fired." The meaning was clear enough. Lorna blinked, disbelief washing over her features before she let out a bitter scoff. "You're firing me? That's exactly what you don't get to fire me." I stilled. My eyes narrowed. "What?" "I said what I said, Mrs. Sinclair," she snapped. "I'm literally older than you. Don't you have any decency in how you speak to people? You think because you married Noel Sinclair, you're all that?" "That is enough," I said sharply. "Mike, Mike was inside in an instant. Take her away. Lorna threw one last insult at me before Mike dragged her out of my office. I exhaled, rubbing my temple. The rest of the firings went smoother. No protests. No dramatic outbursts. Just quiet resignations and reluctant nods. Unlike Lorna. By the time I returned home that night, exhaustion clung to me like a second skin. And, as expected, Noel wasn't there. I pulled out my phone, intending to check the news, but an incoming message caught my attention. An unknown number. I clicked it. And when the image loaded, shock was an understatement to describe what I felt. My breath hitched. My fingers trembled. It was Lorna. Lying on the floor, her body twisted unnaturally. Blood pooled around her head, her lifeless eyes staring into nothingness. And the caption beneath it sent ice through my veins. You killed her because she told the truth. I gasped and nearly dropped the phone. My pulse thundered in my ears. Mike turned sharply. Are you okay, miss? I nodded, but it was a hollow gesture, my head bobbing like a rattled doll. I didn't do it, I muttered, my voice barely above a whisper. Mike didn't hear me. He had stepped out to help me from the car. I followed in silence, my mind spinning, my hands shaking. Inside, I barely noticed the housekeeper waiting near the stairs until she called softly, Madam? I flinched, sucking in a sharp breath. Her eyes widened. I'm sorry to scare you, madam. I shook my head. It's fine. Just prepare me something to eat. A sandwich. She nodded quickly and hurried away. I went straight to my room, shedding my clothes as I stepped into a warm bath, replaying everything over and over in my head. I didn't do it. I didn't know who had. But I knew without a doubt that it was the same person from the wedding. Who were they? Why were they after me? And what the hell did they want? Even after eating, I couldn't sleep. The image of Lorna's lifeless body haunted my mind. Desperate for distraction, I left my room, wandering through the house until I found the library. Books had once been my refuge. Maybe they could be again. I ran my fingers along the spines, trailing over familiar titles until my hand brushed against something odd. A book. A dark, heavy hardcover, its pages were blackened. I gripped its spine, about to pull it free when a voice sliced through the silence. What is this, Tempest? I let the book go immediately and whipped around to find my husband standing before the door. He looked tired, really tired, and I knew it was because of me. For a moment, I thought the scowl on his face and the phone he was holding meant he had finally realized that I was the one who had brought his investments down. Was that what he was talking about? But instead, he just stalked toward me and held the phone up so I could see the picture. The same picture of Lorna, this time captioned with, "Your wife killed her." I gasped, my breath hitching in my throat. My eyes flicked up to Noel's, wondering if he believed it too. I didn't do it, I blurted before he could even ask. I know. His voice was softer than I expected, and the scowl on his face eased. I shook my head furiously. I didn't. I really didn't. The words spilled from me, over and over again, as if saying them enough times could erase the accusation, could make that image disappear. I had only just. Tempest. Noel's voice grounded me. His warm hands cupped my cheeks, his touch surprisingly gentle. His phone was already tucked back into his pocket. He guided me toward the couch in the library, settling me down before stepping away. When he returned, he pressed a glass of water into my hands. I downed big gulps until the glass was empty. Who's she? His voice was calm, but I knew who he meant. Lorna, I answered. A worker from my mother's company. I fired her. His brows furrowed. You went to your mother's company today? I nodded. What happened after you fired her? I inhaled deeply. She cussed at me. My voice wavered. Insulted me too. I called Mike on her. Then when I got home, I received the exact same photo, saying I killed her. My hands trembled atop my lap. Noel noticed but didn't move to touch me this time. This conversation wasn't part of our arrangement, wasn't supposed to happen. But somehow, I needed someone to talk to. The same person I was supposed to kill. I know you didn't kill her, he said, his voice firm. And I will find the person who did. I snapped my gaze up to his. You shouldn't. It isn't necessary. He scoffed. It isn't necessary? His tone sharpened. Someone is out there threatening my wife, and you're telling me it's not necessary to find them? I exhaled heavily and stood. It's not, Noel. This isn't part of our deal. Maybe we should look at our contract again. Things are getting blurry and... So? He cut me off, his voice growing rougher. I should just sit back while someone keeps sending my wife threats? He stepped closer, his height looming over me. What kind of husband would that make me? He didn't wait for my answer before continuing. You are my wife, Tempest. Whether or not this is fake. With that, he turned on his heel and strode toward the door. But just before leaving, he paused. And your security will be topped up too. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with my spiraling thoughts. I sank back onto the couch, my heart heavy. Whoever this person was, they weren't just a danger to me. They could be a threat to Noel, too. Was I worried for him? The answer should have been no. But it didn't come as quickly as it should have. I wasn't worried for him. But if this person was after both of us, didn't that mean we had the same enemy? Right. The next day, I took a day off work. Pepe was handling my father's company while Cynthia took care of my mother's. No work today? I turned from my spot on the couch watching as Noel descended the stairs. He was dressed impeccably gorgeously. My eyes shouldn't linger on him the way they did. I shouldn't think about how handsome he was. But I did anyway. No, I responded, standing and circling the chair. If it's too much for you, find a capable CEO. His tone was measured, calculated. He wasn't just suggesting it, he was trying to pull me out of danger. But I wanted this. I wanted to do it myself. I'm just taking the day off. Doesn't mean I'll quit. Noel studied me for a moment, then nodded. There's a birthday event tomorrow. I was invited. You'll come with me. I nodded immediately. He didn't sneak. To ask that was the whole purpose of this marriage, after all. My black Amex card is on my nightstand, he added as he grabbed his keys. Take it and buy a dress. Thank you. He gave me a brief nod, then walked out of the house. Later that day, Nirvana came over as I had called her. We went shopping together at Unique Boutique. Their dresses were breathtaking, some of the most elegant I had ever seen. I picked up everything I liked without hesitation. Nirvana chose a few for herself too, though she hesitated, calling it using your husband's money. By the time we were done, we were starving. Mike drove us to the nearest restaurant, and as we ate, I slid my phone across the table to show Nirvana the picture. She gasped loudly. This is insane. Her wide eyes flicked up to mine, filled with concern. I know, right? I sighed, stirring my soup absent-mindedly. I don't even know what to make of it. I don't know who could be behind this. Nirvana's face turned serious. Does your husband know? I nodded. She leaned in slightly. This has to be someone close to you. My brows knitted together. Close to me? Not intimately, like friends, she clarified. It could be someone you know but don't actually know. Someone keeping tabs on you on everything you do. A shiver ran down my spine. That was my exact thought. I said, my voice rising with realization. But I still have no idea who it could be. Nirvana gave me a soft smile and reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. Why don't we find this person together, she suggested. Maybe check if there are any secret cameras or hidden trackers on you. I nodded slowly. But then she hesitated, her expression darkening. If you ask me, Thames, I'd say your husband might be behind this. My spoon clattered against the bowl. What? Nirvana's words followed me even after I'd reached home. How sure was she that Noel was behind it? I had shunned her so quickly it even shocked me. I wasn't supposed to defend him, not that I believed Nirvana, but I wasn't about to defend someone I wanted to kill. And Nirvana knew that all too well. She had apologized for suggesting it, saying she was just looking out for me. The moment I got home, I searched myself and everything that could possibly be on me. I formatted my phone, though I had saved my important passwords and data on my laptop. I also checked my wardrobe and everything else, but there was no hidden camera. Noel didn't have cameras at all in the penthouse. After showering, though, I went on a self-guided tour around the house. I found multiple guest rooms, none of them locked. Even his room wasn't locked. And as much as I would hate to admit it, I went through his things. But it was clean. Of course, a murderer would be clean. I came to a stop before a door that was darker in color than the rest. I grabbed the doorknob and twisted. It was locked. Interesting. The first locked door I had ever come across in his house. I had learned the art of unlocking doors with hairpins, but Noel could come back anytime soon. So I let it be. For now. I was definitely going to check it out. Just, not now. The next day was the day of the event. I donned an azure blue sleeveless dress that hugged my chest and flared downward. I paired it with silver YSL heels and a tiny silver purse before leaving my room. As I slowly descended the stairs, I saw Noel already waiting for me. His emerald eyes trailed down my body, and I couldn't help but flush. What was he looking at me like that for? Tonight, his hair was tousled, falling over his face and those intense green eyes. He was wearing an azure blue suit, the same shade as my dress, with a black inner shirt and vest, matching pants, and polished black shoes. He looked dangerously gorgeous, every single bit of him. He outstretched his hand when I reached him, and I took it without hesitation. Then, he leaned down, his breath warm against my skin as his hair tickled my cheek. "You look stunning," he murmured. He pulled away, and his smirk told me I was flushing deep red. Noel's personal guardsman picked up the car key and led us out of the penthouse. He opened the back seat of the G-Wagon for us when we exited the elevator and entered the garage. Noel helped me in first before getting in himself. "You don't really have to be on your best behavior. Just be there," he said, looking at me. I nodded, though my hands suddenly felt clammy. It wasn't my first time attending an event, but this time was different. I wasn't with my parents. I was with my husband. We reached the venue in no time. Noel stepped out first, then helped me down. The house was a luxurious Victorian-style mansion, grand and imposing. I hooked my arm through his crooked elbow, and together, we walked inside with Kyle, Noel's bodyguard. The paparazzi were already there, eagerly waiting before the entrance. We didn't spare them a single glance. Inside, the ballroom was even more extravagant. Golden wine tables lined nearly every inch of the massive space, and to the side stood a stunning pyramid of champagne glasses. "Wine," Noel whispered in my ear, his voice barely audible over the music blasting from every corner of the room. I nodded, and we walked to the pyramid of glasses. He reached for the very top, plucking two, and handed me one. It was champagne. Expensive, and it was good. As I took slow sips, my gaze wandered around the room. Every woman, single or not, was dressed to the nines. I wasn't any less, but still, I couldn't help but compare. Then, I spotted a group of women chatting. One of them looked oddly familiar. Her back was turned, but when she finally turned around and locked eyes with me, I subconsciously squeezed Noel's arm. I didn't need to look at him to know he was already following my gaze. "Who is that?" he asked, his voice lower now. I tore my eyes away from her and looked up at him. "My father's ex-mistress," I said softly. He discarded her 3 months before his death. His eyes narrowed slightly, then he nodded in understanding. I turned back toward Mitchell, who was now approaching me. She looked the same. Long, black as night hair. A plump, curvy figure. That sweet, ever-present smile. I never liked her when father kept her. Not because of who she was, but because of what it did to my mother, how they made her sad. But regardless, Mitchell had always been kind to me. Even then. Tempest, she squealed when she reached me, her heels clicking against the floor. She was a little taller than me. I glanced at Noel and gave him a nod. He understood. Pressing a kiss to the top of my head, he leaned in and murmured, "I'll be with some investors. Call me if anything." Then, his gaze flickered to Mitchell before he disappeared into the crowd. Ms. Mitchell. I didn't know if my address was correct since I'd known her. She had neither married nor had children. How have you been? I forced a small smile. All right, as you can see, she chuckled. Then, her eyes twinkled mischievously. Didn't know you got married. To Noel Sinclair of all people. I laughed softly. I knew what she was thinking. She, too, had known that the Sinclairs were my father's enemies. Well, things happen, I said with a small shrug. She tilted her head slightly. My deepest condolences for your loss, dear. I smiled at her words. I thought I had moved on. I thought I was over their deaths. Or maybe. I only convinced myself that I was. It's all right, I replied. It's almost been 2 months now. I'm fine. She nodded softly but still reached out and squeezed my arm. Why didn't you come for the burial? I asked. I sent an invitation to your place. Oh, dear, I wasn't in New York at the time, she sighed. It was my turn to squeeze her arm. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. It's all right, dear. I hope we can keep in contact, she asked hopefully. I nodded, pulling out my phone. After exchanging contacts, we air-kissed, and she returned to her group of women. Noel returned to my side moments later. He leaned down and whispered, "The host wants me to help cut the cake with a few others." The host was probably one of his investors. After the cake cutting, pictures, and everything else, it was finally time to go home. Noel walked me upstairs, and when we reached my room, we paused. I looked up at him, biting my lip, suddenly feeling shy. Thank you for tonight. I needed that, I admitted. He gave me a lopsided smile and nodded. You're welcome, he murmured, then tilted his head toward my door. Good night, darling. Darling? Good night, Noel, I whispered and practically ran inside. But the moment I did, my breath hitched. A box sat on my nightstand. My brows furrowed as I slowly approached, carefully picking it up and sitting on my bed. I turned it to the side, then opened it. Inside was a photograph, face down. I lifted it and turned it around. A scream nearly tore from my throat. It was my brother, tied to a chair. Alive. Bloodied and bruised. Ever since I received that little gift a week ago, I hadn't been myself. My brother was alive. Battered and bruised, but alive. And in someone's captivity. I had been glued to my phone, checking it every few minutes, waiting, hoping for a message that had to come. Whoever had sent that box couldn't just leave me hanging. There had to be an ultimatum, a demand, something to do to get my brother back. So why hadn't I received anything yet? I had asked the maids if anyone had come by, but she shook her head, insisting that no one had, except for the meat delivery. And even then, she said the guardsman hadn't let him inside. So who could it be? At this point, there was only one person who could have sent that box to my room specifically. Noel. My husband. Nirvana's words echoed in my mind. I'd say your husband might be behind this. Was he really? Had I doubted Nirvana for nothing? Noel could obviously pull something like this off after all, we were still rivals, even if we were married. Maybe I wasn't the only one trying to eliminate him. Maybe he was trying to eliminate me, too. How could I have been so stupid to blindly defend him? Knowing he was my enemy? I stared at my computer screen, but my mind wasn't there. My fingers hovered uselessly over the keyboard, my thoughts spiraling. After a very distracted day at work, it was finally time to leave. I called Pepe, told him everything I had done today, and informed him I'd be heading to my mother's company tomorrow so he could take over for the day. The car ride home was silent. The quiet pressed in on me, thick and suffocating. As I entered the elevator up to the penthouse, my mind was in overdrive. The second I reached my floor, I headed straight to my room, stripping off my work clothes and slipping into something light. Then, with one of my hairpins in hand, I walked down the hall to the locked room. It didn't take me long to pick the lock. When I heard the telltale click, my heart slammed against my ribs. I was doing this. I will do this. This might be the key to proving that Noel was truly the murderer. If I had solid proof, I could send him straight to the police without having to dirty my hands. With that thought in mind, I gripped the doorknob, took a steadying breath and stepped inside. It was pitch dark. So dark I couldn't even see my own hands. I fumbled along the wall, searching blindly until my fingers found the switch. I flipped it on. The sudden brightness made me blink, but that wasn't what stole my breath away. The wall opposite me did. A slow, horrified gasp escaped my lips. It was just like the kind you saw in movies, the kind where psychopaths plastered their targets' photos across a board, marking the ones already gone in red. My feet moved on their own, carrying me closer. My father's picture was at the center. My mother's was beside his. Both marked red. Then, at the top, Mitchell. What was Mitchell doing here? Beside her was Nirvana on the right, and on the left Tyler, my brother. A shuddering breath escaped me. My trembling fingers reached up to caress his face in the photograph. He looked happy here. Whole. Unlike the bloodied and broken version of him that had been sent to me in a box. I didn't need a genius to tell me Noel was behind this. The doors suddenly slammed open. I flinched, my body whipping around just in time to see my nemesis standing at the entrance. His nostrils flared, his expression a storm of fury. On any other occasion, I might have been scared. But not now. Not when I knew who he was. What the fuck are you doing here, Tempest? His voice was a thunderclap, making me jump. I stuttered, my brain scrambling for an answer, but he was already closing the distance between us in just a few strides. I asked you a fucking question. This. I shouted back, jabbing a finger toward the wall, then swinging it back at him. What is this, huh? He didn't even look shocked. He didn't even glance at the wall. His eyes were locked onto me the entire time. My chest heaved as I gritted my teeth and stalked toward him, shattering the space between us. You're the murderer, aren't you? I snarled, rage burning through me. His jaw tensed. What the hell are you talking about now, Tempest? I let out a humorless chuckle. You're the one who did it, Noel. You're the one who caused their accident that night. Fury, grief, and betrayal tangled inside me. My fists clenched, and I struck his chest, but he didn't budge. He simply caught my wrists, stopping my attacks with ease. Relax, Tem. Relax? I cut him off with a sharp scoff. Relax? When I'm living with a murderer? With the bastard who sent me a picture of my brother bruised, bloody, dying? My voice broke. The words came out strangled, choked by the lump in my throat. Tears blurred my vision, spilling over before I could stop them. I turned away from him, sucking in a shuddering breath. What box? His voice was lower now. I refused to look at him, so he stepped forward, catching my chin between his fingers and forcing me to meet his gaze. What fucking box, Tempest? I didn't send anything. So tell me. Liar, I spat, venom dripping from the word. You are a liar. I ripped my hands free from his grasp and resumed my assault, hammering my fists against his chest. You are a fucking liar, Noel. I hate you. My voice cracked with raw emotion, my sobs racking through me. I hate you so much. Then, suddenly his hands cupped my cheeks, tilting my face up. Before I could react, he crushed his lips against mine, kissing me through my sobs, through my fury. My eyes widened, but I didn't pull away. My lids fluttered shut, and I let him kiss me fiercely, harshly. When he finally pulled back, we were both panting. My eyes trailed down to his lips, still glistening from the kiss. I licked my own, my breath uneven. Then, without thinking, I kissed him back. And this time, I kissed him with the same fevered desperation. Noel wrapped his arm under my ass and pulled me up against his body. I wrapped my legs around his back as he carried us out of the room and toward the library, all while kissing. It was a battle for dominance, neither of us willing to back down. I didn't even realize we had reached the library until he set me down on the couch, finally breaking our kiss. I gasped for air, so did he. His heated gaze pinned me in place, like he wanted to do more but was seriously holding back. Did I want him to do more? Yes. Why? I had no idea. I didn't know how it had come to this. 1 minute, I was furious, lashing out, venting my anger on him. The next, we were kissing, my lips were numb, but I still wanted more. I bit my lip and scooted to the side, making room for him to sit beside me. Our knees brushed, and a wave of desire coursed through me. Tell me everything, Tem, he murmured, his voice low and steady. I bit my lip again, hesitating. Should I? I still wasn't sure if he was the murderer. My brother is missing, I began, turning to look at him only to find him already watching me. His focus was unwavering. I adjusted my position so my neck wouldn't ache from looking at him. He was with them the night of my parents' accident. But when we got there, he was nowhere to be found. Who is we? Noel probed quietly. Nirvana, my best friend. I met her 6 months ago. I was with her when I got the call from Pepe, my father's right-hand man. We rushed over immediately. My throat tightened with emotion. The memories clawed their way back, dragging me to that night a month and a half ago. Flashback. Nirvana and I were binge-watching one of our favorite Korean dramas, munching on chips because we don't do popcorn. She got a call and excused herself. A minute after she returned, my phone rang. Pepe? I answered. Miss Tempest, he sighed, his voice resigned and weary. You should. Your parents just had an accident. You need to come now. The phone slipped from my hand. I didn't even hear the rest of his words. I didn't bother changing. I bolted out of the house, Nirvana right behind me in her nightgown. We ran straight to the address Pepe had sent to me and Nirvana. How did he get Nirvana's number? When we arrived, the scene was utter chaos. The car was flipped upside down, smoke curling from every possible angle. Glass shards littered the ground like shattered flowers. I didn't cry. Not yet. I forced myself to walk forward. They had already pulled my parents from the wreckage. And then I saw them. Shards of glass embedded in their skin. Blood staining them like sweat. Dead. I swallowed the scream clawing up my throat. Instead, I looked up at the men standing around. My voice was eerily calm when I spoke. My brother is still inside the car. A single tear slipped down my cheek as I said it. But the men shook their heads. My brother wasn't inside. They hadn't seen him at all. That morning was the last time I ever saw my parents. The last time I ever saw my brother. Present. I recounted everything to Noel. He listened quietly, not speaking until I finished. Why did you believe it was me? His voice was low. I bit my lip, fidgeting with my fingers. Well, because Va were his rival and Obviously, you'd want to kill him. At the time, too, he stole one of your top investors, so? Noel chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. He nodded. What is the wall for? I finally asked. The question had been gnawing at me. Noel sighed and leaned back against the couch, tilting his head toward the ceiling. I was on to your father. Before and after his death. But not to kill him. His gaze flickered to me. I didn't do it. I didn't kill your father. Something in his voice made me believe him. I knew about their deaths, he continued. And even though it wasn't my problem, I still felt the need to investigate. The police closed it as an accident, but I knew it wasn't. I knew they were murdered. Me too, I whispered. But what are Mitchell and Nirvana doing on the wall? I pressed. Nirvana is as innocent as the back of my hand. And why am I not there? Noel shrugged. Had to be careful. And I know you wouldn't kill your own family, so why would you be there? I nodded slowly. That was true. I looked up at him. So, you're really not the one? No. He didn't hesitate. And it terrified me how quickly I believed him. I was the one who caused the scandal with your top investment, I confessed, barely above a whisper. Noel chuckled again, his gaze never wavering. I know, darling. My eyes widened. You knew? From the start or just recently? From the start. He smirked. Must say, you're quite skilled, love. A flush of embarrassment crept over me. I'm sorry, I murmured. Is everything okay over there now? Noel nodded but didn't speak. Feeling guilt gnaw at me, I leaned up and pressed a soft kiss to his lips. A low growl rumbled from his chest, but I pulled back instantly. What was that for, darling? Noel asked, grinning lopsidedly. I hesitated, then softly asked, Would you like to visit my parents with me? His expression shifted, something unreadable flashing in his eyes. Yes. It was as early as 8 o'clock when Noel drove us to Eternal Rest Cemetery. We were dressed in black not because it was necessary, but because we chose to. It felt right. Noel pulled into the parking lot, and we stepped out of the car, each holding a bouquet of flowers. The path up the hill was uneven, but we walked it in silence, weaving through the maze of headstones until we reached the ones that mattered most: my parents. They rested side by side, just as they had in life. Father would have a stroke if he were alive and I married you, I murmured, a low chuckle escaping as I stood beside Noel, staring down at the graves. A bittersweet warmth curled in my chest. I placed my flowers carefully before each headstone, and Noel followed suit. It would have been under different circumstances if he were alive and you married me, Noel said, his voice even but laced with something unspoken. Yeah. He didn't need to say it, I already knew. He understood exactly why I married him. After updating my parents on random things, filling them in on the mundane and the significant alike, Noel and I wandered to a nearby bench. The cemetery was quiet this early, just the occasional rustle of leaves in the breeze. We were safe from the prying eyes of paparazzi, at least for now. I had a brother too. Noel's words pulled me from my thoughts. My gaze snapped to his, my eyes widening. You did? He nodded. He killed himself. Drugs. His voice was detached, almost clinical, but I saw the tension in his jaw. He just wanted to rest. The pressure was too much for him. He was the firstborn, so he was expected to be the best. He paused, taking a slow, measured breath. I could tell this wasn't something he spoke about often or wanted to. But my brother wasn't really that kind, you know. He was carefree. He never wanted the weight on his shoulders. So, he left us. A lump formed in my throat. I'm so sorry, I whispered. It's all right. 4 years ago. He shrugged, a little too carelessly. I guess I'm over it. But I knew he wasn't. Not really. Did he have kids? I asked hesitantly. He did. My mouth went dry. A son. His mother, my brother's wife, ran off with another man after his death. She dumped the kid at my parents' doorstep when he was just 2. They couldn't take care of him, of course, so they sent him to an orphanage. He should be 5 now. A small, almost wistful smile tugged at Noel's lips as he spoke of his nephew. I couldn't wrap my head around it. How could a mother abandon her own child? I wasn't a mother yet, but I just knew I could never do something like that. Do you hate him? I asked softly. Your brother? Noel shook his head. I don't. Even if I wanted to, I just can't. It wasn't his fault. The pressure was unbearable, and, yeah, maybe he was selfish. But I still don't hate him. I squeezed his hand, threading my fingers through his in silent understanding. We should meet him sometime. Your nephew. Noel turned to look at me, searching my face for something before nodding. We should. He sighed, rubbing his temple. That reminds me. My father invited us to dinner tonight. Oh. That's lovely. I forced a neutral expression, even though nothing about that sounded remotely lovely. Meeting the older Sinclairs was not on my to-do list. Not when my marriage to Noel was built on deception. After Noel and I returned from the cemetery, we both got ready and went our separate works. He couldn't drop me off. He had a meeting that had been postponed so he could escort me to the cemetery. The thought made me feel warmer than it should. Now, I sat in my office at Blackwood Tech, trying to focus when a knock sounded at the door. Pepe walked in, followed by Nirvana, who carried a plastic bag. My stomach clenched at the familiar scent wafting from it. Please tell me that's food, I groaned, the aroma an onslaught to my already desperate hunger. I hadn't had a chance to eat since breakfast, and with the looming dinner at the Sinclairs, I wasn't sure I'd be able to stomach anything later. You know it, girl. Nirvana squealed, making her way to the small sitting area. I abandoned my office chair and scurried over, helping her set out the ake-out containers on the coffee table. This smells so good. I grabbed the cutlery and dug in like a starving woman. Relax, Thames. I'm not saving you if you choke, Nirvana chuckled, shaking her head. We ate in comfortable silence. And by the time we were finished, I was so full I doubted I'd have any room left for dinner with the Sinclairs. Then, almost without thinking, blurted, so. I kissed him. I bit my lip, trying to suppress the grin threatening to take over my face. Nirvana's head snapped up from her phone, her eyes wide. You kissed him? As in, your husband? I nodded, exhaling slowly. We talked too. I sat up straighter, my expression sobering. It was a whole mess, but now I'm certain he's not the one. Noel isn't my parents' murderer, Nirvana. Silence. A beat. Then 2. Nirvana just stared at me, her eyes dark and unreadable. And then she laughed. A low, humorless chuckle. Don't tell me you actually believe that? Her voice was sharp, edged with disbelief. You literally married him because he killed your parents, and now after one kiss you're saying he's innocent? She scoffed. I expected you to be smarter, Tempest. Her words hit like a slap. I blinked, stunned. Nirvana had never spoken to me like this before. Yes, we were both invested in catching Noel, but this was my battle. My vengeance. So why was she so angry? What's this about, Nev? I asked, incredulous. Noel isn't my parents' killer. And I know you'll say I'm blindly believing him without evidence, but what if I inhaled sharply, steadying myself? What if there is actual evidence? My voice rose. Noel is innocent. And my parents' murderer is still out there. Nirvana scoffed, shaking her head as she gathered her things. I can't believe you're so easily deceived, she muttered, sneering before she walked out, leaving me more stunned than ever. An hour later, Pepe stepped into my office, his face in the usual neutral, but I knew he wasn't really relaxed. Your husband is here, Mrs. Tempest. My cheeks heated at Pepe's words. It was time already, I knew that. But what I didn't know was that Noel was going to personally come and pick me up. The elevator ride down to the garage felt excruciatingly slow, or maybe that was just my nerves. By the time the doors pinged open, I took a deep breath before stepping out. And there he was. Noel stood beside a sleek red Ferrari, dressed in his usual suit, effortlessly polished, effortlessly him. He leaned against the car like a model in a luxury ad, exuding the kind of confidence that made my stomach flip. His gaze found mine instantly, and a small smile tugged at his lips. I bit my lip and slowly approached him. When did it get like this? Did that one kiss change everything? You didn't tell me you were coming, I murmured, tilting my head up to meet his eyes. I didn't consider myself short, but standing this close, his height was suddenly intimidating. Surprise, he chuckled, and I found myself joining in. I glanced around, expecting to see Kyle nearby. Didn't bring your bodyguard? I did. He'll drive back with Mike, using your car. Then, to my surprise, Noel reached for my hand, his grip gentle but firm as he led me around the car. He opened the door for me, and I slid inside, offering him a small, grateful smile. When did my enemy start making me feel warm? But was he even my enemy anymore? I didn't think so. Noel took his seat beside me, started the ignition, and drove off. The Sinclair estate was magnificent, grand in the most excessive, awe-inspiring way. The compound was so vast it could house an entire community. If someone told me politicians lived here too, I'd believe it. It also explained Noel's impeccable taste. His house was strikingly similar to his family's, only theirs was bigger. Don't be scared. My parents don't bite, Noel whispered in my ear as he intertwined his fingers with mine and led me toward the entrance. Mike and Kyle followed a few steps behind. I scoffed, nervous laughter bubbling up. They don't, but they do know I'm a Blackwood. He corrected smoothly, and when I looked up at him, he was smirking. Did you forget? You bear my name now, wife. My cheeks burned. What was wrong with him? Stop saying nonsensical things, I muttered, clearing my throat to cover my embarrassment, while he laughed on. We walked toward the grand entrance, where 2 guards stood at attention. There were 4 more stationed by the gate. Mr. Noel, they greeted in unison, bowing slightly. Then their eyes shifted to me. Mrs. Sinclair. A small smile tugged at my lips. Mrs. Sinclair. The guards opened the towering double doors, and we were immediately met by an elderly woman dressed in formal attire. She bowed slightly before leading us inside. My eyes couldn't help but roam the lavish interior. Whoa, he actually brought the Blackwood bitch into our home. My breath hitched. Heat crawled up my neck as shame crashed over me in waves. I turned toward the source of the voice and found an elegant, model-like woman striding toward us. She had striking red hair, though something about it seemed off. Noel's grip on my hand tightened. You don't talk to my wife that way, Eunice, he said, his voice dark and edged with warning. Apologize. Now. The woman Eunice scoffed, her hips swaying as she stalked closer. Oh, please spare me the dramatics, brother. We both know you didn't marry her for love. She sneered before turning her sharp gaze to me. She was tall, nearly as tall as Noel, and she made sure to look down at me. And we all know you married Noel for your own hidden, ulterior motives, she said, voice dripping with venom. But don't worry. I'll find out what it is. She leaned in slightly, her lips curling, and when I do, I'll make sure you're sent back like the garbage you are. Her words landed like a slap. And the worst part? She wasn't entirely wrong. Because, yes, at first, my mission had been to eliminate Noel. But things changed. They changed when I knew it wasn't him. They changed when I realized I couldn't hate him anymore. But how could I possibly explain that to her? Before I could respond, Noel's expression darkened. His jaw clenched as he grabbed his sister's arm and pulled her. Away from me. That's enough, Eunice, he growled. His tone was ice-cold, lethal. Talk to my wife like that again, and you won't like what happens next. Family or not. My chest tightened. My eyes burned, but I refused to cry. But my heart swelled at Noel's words. He had just defended me against his own sister. Noel. Eunice. A softer, elderly voice cut through the tension. Noel let go of Eunice and turned toward the approaching figure. The woman was stunning, dressed to the nines, carrying herself with an air of quiet authority. But what struck me most was the resemblance. She looked exactly like Noel. The resemblance was uncanny. Eunice, dear, she sighed, her voice gentle but firm. I've warned you before, be nice to our guests. Noel. Eunice. A soft, elderly voice came from ahead of us. Noel let go of his sister and turned to face the woman walking toward us, dressed to the nines. She looked exactly like Noel. The resemblance was uncanny. Eunice, dear. I've warned you to be nice to your visitors, haven't one? The lady smiled. She had red hair, and now I realized that Eunice's wasn't dyed, as I had initially thought. Although Noel's hair was brown, you could still see streaks of red, even in his brows. Eunice rolled her eyes and let out an exaggerated huff before stomping away. The woman turned back to me, still smiling. Tempest, is it? I swallowed and nodded. Yes. She chuckled softly before turning on her heel. Come along, dear, she said, leading us further inside. The dining table was long and magnificent, adorned in rich gold and cream. It wasn't glass but ceramic, smooth and polished to perfection. Various types of meals were laid out, some so unfamiliar that I hesitated, unsure if I should even attempt them. Noel's father took his seat at the head of the table, his wife at the other end. Noel sat to his right, and I was directly beside him, while Eunice occupied the seat to her father's left, her fingers busy pressing away on her phone. Put away the phone, you. Noel's father's voice boomed across the dining space. His deep, commanding tone sent a ripple of tension through me. It was the kind of voice that could make even the most confident person falter. Eunice let out an exaggerated sigh but obeyed, setting her phone down with an audible clack against the table. Dinner commenced shortly after. Thankfully, I was well versed in dining etiquette. I wasn't about to embarrass myself in front of my in-laws. Throughout the meal, Noel would casually place meat onto my plate, and that was when I realized he was vegan. My gaze flickered to him, surprised. He caught my look and smirked slightly. So, Tempest. What do you do? Morris, Noel's father, asked suddenly, his sharp gaze settling on me. I glanced at Noel from the corner of my eye, a small knot forming in my throat as I swallowed. Then, I turned to meet my father-in-law's piercing gaze. I took over Blackwood Tech Enterprises and dress design. My father's and mother's businesses, sir, I answered smoothly. Morris raised a brow. Both of them? I nodded. Yes, sir. A slow, approving nod followed. That's very impressive. His tone held genuine admiration. A small smile tugged at my lips at his reaction. But isn't that a lot for you, dear? My mother-in-law asked, her voice softer, warmer. Concern flickered in her eyes. You're still very young, aren't you? How old are you? I'm 21, Ma, I answered, instinctively biting my lower lip. Ma? She chuckled. Oh, don't be silly, love. You can call me Mom. A scoff sounded from across the table. I didn't have to look to know it was Eunice. How old did you say you were again, love? 21, Mom, I repeated, my heart doing an odd, fluttery thing at the word. Mom hummed thoughtfully. Oh, 21 is such a young age. Isn't it too hard for you? Her brows furrowed with concern. No, I shook my head. It's not. I'm managing it very well. Well, that's lovely then. Noel and I were given a room. A room. As in, I was supposed to sleep on the same bed with him. We had never shared a bed before, not even after all the kisses we had exchanged. This felt different. A nervous excitement coiled in my stomach, making me feel like a shy teenager about to sleep next to her crush for the first time. "Are you going to stand by the door all night?" Noel's amused voice snapped me out of my thoughts. He was undoing the buttons of his shirt, his movements slow and deliberate. No. I swallowed hard, forcing my feet to move further into the room. I placed my purse on the vanity, willing myself not to look at my husband. But my willpower crumbled the moment his torso came into view, sculpted, toned, perfect. "Are you going to shower?" Noel asked, taking a step toward me. "Huh? Yes, I am." He chuckled, his green eyes twinkling with mischief. Leaning down, he caged me in with his arms, pinning me between himself and the vanity. His warm breath ghosted over my ear. "Should we shower together then?" he whispered, his voice smooth, teasing. Heat surged up my neck, my cheeks burning. Huh? What are you saying?" I stammered, eyes widening. He pulled back and laughed, a deep, rich sound that I found myself loving way too much. "I'm just joking, darling. You should go first." Nightwear had already been laid out for us, so I grabbed mine and practically fled into the large bathroom. There was no way I was changing in front of him. After a long shower, I slipped into the silky, pink sleeveless nightgown that barely grazed my thighs. It felt too revealing, but there was nothing I could do about it now. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of the bathroom. Noel's gaze swept over me from head to toe. His eyes darkened slightly, a slow smirk curling his lips. He took a step forward, his fingers tracing the curve of my nightgown's neckline. "Love your nightie," he murmured, leaning down so that his lips brushed my ear. "It's sexy." My breath hitched. My heart was not prepared for this level of intensity. And just like that, he turned and walked into the bathroom, leaving me standing there, feeling like my mind had short-circuited. Shaking my head, I made my way to the vanity and pulled out my phone just as a message pinged. My heart skipped. It was an unknown number. Different from the last one. Dread crawled up my spine as clicked on the message and downloaded the attached picture. My stomach twisted. It was my brother. This time, he wasn't tied up, just lying on his side, his torso bare. He wasn't covered in blood. But the bruises on his skin were visible. The caption read, "Enjoying yourself without a care in the world for your brother. Guess that's my cue to discard him." A gasp escaped my lips, my fingers trembling as I quickly typed a desperate reply, begging whoever this was. 5 minutes. No response. Sweat beaded on my forehead. My palms turned clammy, despite the cool air circulating through the room. Then, the bathroom door swung open. Noel emerged, steam billowing behind him. He paused in the doorway, ruffling his damp hair with a smaller towel. The larger one sat dangerously low around his hips, just beneath the sharp cut of his V-line. For a moment, the sheer sight of him wiped every single thought from my brain, but then his gaze flicked to my face, then to my phone. And then back to my face. "What's the matter?" he asked, his tone shifting. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. He repeated the question, stepping closer. I shook my head, instinctively hiding my phone behind my back. It's nothing." "It's not nothing, Tempest." His voice was sharp, edged with authority. Before I could react, he reached forward and snatched the phone from my grasp. I sucked in a breath. Damn it. I didn't use a password, so it was too easy for him to unlock and read the message. His jaw clenched, brows knitting together in concern. "Has this person messaged you before?" Noel asked, his voice steady but laced with tension. I hesitated, then nodded. "No. But I've received a similar message, the one about that late worker I'd fired. I think it's the same person, using different numbers." Noel exhaled sharply, nodding. "I think so too." His fingers moved swiftly over the screen, forwarding the number and message to himself. Then, he tossed the phone onto the bed and grabbed my waist, pulling me close. His lips brushed against mine as he whispered, "We'll find your brother, darling." He kissed me softly. "And we'll make the people behind this pay. Okay?" I looked into his emerald eyes, my breath catching, my heart hammering. I think I'm in love with my husband. Or maybe I already am. "Okay," I whispered, wrapping my arms around him, kissing him back with everything I had. Noel's POV. The room was dark except for a single, dim bulb swaying slightly from the ceiling, casting a weak glow over my target. He was on his knees, battered and bruised. Scratch that. He was a mess of bruises and blood, his face barely recognizable beneath the swelling and crimson streaks. I took a slow drag from my cigarette, inhaling deep before exhaling toward the ceiling, watching the smoke curl in lazy swirls. Smoking was something I used to enjoy, something I'd given up for my wife. Not that she ever asked me to, and hell, I didn't even know if she liked men who smoked. But I wasn't about to do it in front of her. "Ready to speak?" I asked, lowering my head to level a cold stare at the man who dared step into my house. "My wife's room." Sir, Kyle, standing beside me, didn't wait for the man to finish. His fist shot out, colliding with the man's face in a sickening crack. Blood splattered, his head snapping to the side, but my other bodyguard built like an ogre held him steady. "Who told you to give her the box?" My voice was dangerously calm, laced with venom. "And how did you get into my house?" The man's breath hitched. His lips trembled before he rasped, The box was at my doorstep last week when I got home." They threatened, his eyes darted around, fear rolling off him in waves. "They threatened to kill my sister. He's in a coma, in the hospital." I already knew that. Kyle had done his research. The pathetic excuse of a man before me had a comatose younger sister. Would I have pitied him? Maybe. But I didn't have the heart for such things. "They said they would pay," he continued shakily. "And won. I really needed the money for her medical bills. So I just did what I had to. I wasn't thinking." Pathetic. I let the silence stretch, letting him stew in his fear. Then, I took another slow drag of my cigarette. "It wouldn't be your first time sneaking through a window, would it?" My tone turned sharp. "And somehow you just so happened to find my wife's room? How do you explain that?" Mario, his name, according to Kyle, visibly swallowed, eyes flickering between my right-hand man and me. He shook his head violently. "No. I didn't jump through any window. I gave it to one of the maids. I swear. I didn't know her name, but I handed it to her, and she took care of the rest." My brows furrowed. A maid? No messages, boxes, or gifts ever entered my home without passing through me first. If a maid had delivered something without my approval, then she was either new or someone had made a grave mistake in hiring her. Or maybe it wasn't a mistake at all. "Write down the number of the person who sent you the money and the messages." Kyle handed him a pen and paper. With trembling fingers, Mario scribbled down the digits. Kyle passed me the paper, and when my eyes landed on the number, a slow, dark smirk spread across my face. The same number that had messaged my wife. Whoever this someone was, they had made a very, very stupid mistake. And that meant it was my cue to strike. I pulled my phone from my pocket, dialed a number, and the line connected instantly. My voice was low. "I'm sending you a number. Find the person behind it. Location, background, everything." I ended the call, taking one last glance at Mario. "Let him go." The man collapsed onto the floor, gasping out incoherent words of gratitude, but I didn't bother listening. I was already walking away. I needed to see my wife. The urge was unbearable, clawing at my insides. My veins throbbed, my pulse hammering faster than I cared to admit. I got into my car, and the drive back to my mansion took less time than usual. I was driving like a man possessed. When I arrived, I didn't even wait for the guards to open the gates fully. I sped in, parked, and took the elevator up with the speed of light. The ride felt agonizingly slow, but I knew it was my own impatience gnawing at me, not the actual time passing. And then finally there she was. In the living room, setting the dining table. She was dressed in a simple pajama set, top and bottoms, her delicate fingers moving as she covered the dishes. She probably hadn't expected me home so soon. When she turned and saw me, her eyes widened, her lips parting slightly in surprise. "Noel," she breathed, stepping toward me. "You're home." I hummed in response, nodding as I moved closer, closing the space between us, wrapping my arms around her waist. I loved her personal space too much. She flushed, looking anywhere but at me. "I prepared dinner tonight. Are you hungry? Do you want to?" She gasped as I suddenly lifted her, settling her atop the headrest of the couch, keeping my arm firmly around her. "Of course I'm hungry." My voice was low, husky. I dipped my head, letting my nose skim down her jaw, inhaling her scent. "But not for food." Her breath hitched. What do you want then?" "ASNA." I cut her off with a hard, consuming kiss. I kissed her like a starved man, my hands mapping every curve, every inch of her body. I wanted her. Needed her. She moaned against my lips, gasping when I moved down to her neck, trailing hot, open-mouthed kisses along her skin. My fingers made quick work of the first 3 buttons of her top. Her breath came in sharp pants. "Noel, dinner will get cold." "I don't want dinner, baby." My voice was rough, edged with hunger. I scooped her into my arms, carrying her toward my bedroom. No, our bedroom. Tonight, it would become ours. I laid her on the bed, undoing every single button of her pajama top, sliding her bottoms off in one fluid motion. A growl rumbled deep in my chest as I took her in. She was perfection. An hourglass perfection. And she was mine. Stripping off my own clothes, I let my gaze rake over her again. Tempest's eyes widened when she saw my length. I smirked. "Surprised, darling?" I hovered over her, positioning myself between her legs. It won't fit," she whispered, her arms wrapping around me. I pressed a kiss to her forehead, then to her lips. She gasped when I thrust into her, her nails digging into my skin. She was a virgin. That knowledge sent something dark and possessive surging through me. I was her first. And I would be her only. We moved together, over and over, chasing release, drawing desperate moans from each other. And then on the final round, when she was trembling beneath me, her eyes glassy with pleasure, she whispered something that sent my world tilting on its axis. "I love you, Noel." I can't believe I told him that. I mean, sure, I could try to blame it on the lovemaking, but deep down, I knew it had nothing to do with that. I was in love with Noel. The way my heart skipped multiple beats any time he was near. The way warmth bloomed in my chest whenever he whispered sweet nothings in my ear. The way butterflies went wild in my stomach whenever he defended me, keeping me safe. All of those were symptoms of love, undeniable and overwhelming. But I shouldn't have told him not yet. That wasn't why we were married. Even though we had moved past that stage, even though it didn't matter anymore, still. And now, what's worse? Noel hadn't said a word. He was still above me, in all his beautiful, naked glory, staring down at me. His piercing gaze felt like it was burning right through my soul. I bit my lip, disappointment creeping in like a slow, suffocating fog. I didn't mean to say it. It was all. "Do you?" he suddenly asked, his voice quieter than before. "Do you really love me?" I bit my bottom lip harder this time, scared I might draw blood, but Noel reached down and pulled it away from between my teeth. His touch was gentle yet firm, his eyes searching mine. "Yes," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, I do." I know it's not part of our plan to fall in love. But I just can't control it. Every day, I find myself falling more and more for you. It's uncontrollable, and it's real. I love you, Noel. Noel leaned down and kissed me. It wasn't like the others, no wild desperation, no consuming hunger. This one was calm, deep, passionate. It felt like love. I love you too, Tempest, he murmured against my lips. I'm in love with your fiery spirit and literally everything about you. My stomach flipped. I tried and woefully failed to hide my grin. I tried to kill you the first time. Noel chuckled, the sound rich and warm. I know. And thinking about it makes me so damn hard. I laughed, shaking my head. That night, we lay in each other's arms, talking about everything and nothing. As the sky deepened into an inky blue, we finally gave in to sleep, tangled in each other. The next morning, I woke up a sore mess. Work. Not happening. Not today. Noel had absolutely sex-troyed me last night, if that was even a real word. He had looked every part of the beast he was in bed, and I was paying the price for it now. I sighed, stirring my morning tea when my phone buzzed. An incoming call from none other than Nirvana. I hesitated but answered. Hello Tem. She paused, clearly uncertain. I didn't say anything. I was still mad at her for what she pulled in my office a few days ago. Can you, come out today? She asked hesitantly. I really want to apologize properly. So, please, can you meet me at our favorite cafe? I sighed. All right. Meet you at 12. Yeah, okay. Thank you. She hesitated for a beat before ending the call. By noon, I had Mike drive me to the cozy downtown cafe. It wasn't exactly small, but it had that warm, familiar feel. You'll wait here, Mike, or you car? Stay inside the car, I told him as I stepped out. Mike shook his head. It's my job to protect you, Mrs. Sinclair. I sighed. I know, but girls need their time, don't they? Yes. But there are a lot of people in the cafe, and there could be a possible threat inside. We still don't know who was behind the shooting on your wedding day, he said in one breath. Yikes. I had almost forgotten about that. All right, I relented, but you'll sit at another table not too close. Mike nodded, and we walked inside. I spotted Nirvana immediately. She was wearing a Dior two-piece, scrolling through her phone. When I sat across from her, she looked up, her eyes widening momentarily. Hey. Hello, Tempest, she greeted awkwardly. I managed a small smile. Hi, Nevada. She bit her bottom lip, then sighed. I'm so sorry, Tem. At the time, everything was getting to me, and I just didn't know what I was saying. I was also worried about you. You know, we both thought, and I still thought, he was the culprit, even after you told me he wasn't. I know it's not my fight, and my actions the last time were so uncalled for. I'm truly, truly sorry. She spoke so fast I almost didn't catch everything. I smiled and reached for her hand across the table. It's all right. I know you were mad and worried. If it were me, I'd be too. But, I shrugged, chuckling. You were just a little extra about it. She laughed, relief washing over her face. I continued, it's all right anyway. I can't stand fighting with my best friend. I love you, Nirvana said, standing up. I did too, and we hugged it out before sitting back down. So, I began, taking a sip of the cold orange juice she had already ordered for me. She knew me well. We did it last night. Nirvana blinked. Did it? Like, you really did it with him? When I nodded, her eyes went wide. She gasped inaudibly, and her face shifted into something mischievous, very Nirvana-like. Guess who finally joined the adult club, she teased. I laughed, shaking my head. I was an adult even without sex, Nevada. Yeah, right. She rolled her eyes, sipping from her raspberry juice. Anyway, I confessed to him too. Told him I loved him. He said he loved me too. Her hand stilled around her glass. Her smile flickered just for a millisecond before she grinned wide again. Really, she chuckled. Biggest plot twist of the year. Goes from wanting to kill him to loving him. I know, right? My cheeks heated at the memory of last night. Nirvana and I talked some more. She was planning to apply to Harvard. She had the luxury of going to college I didn't. But she got accepted and would be preparing to leave for London soon. The thought made my heart sink a little. She was my closest friend. After the sun dipped into the horizon, we walked out of the cafe together, Mike leading the way. When we reached the car, Nirvana squeezed my arm. Stay safe out there, bestie, she murmured before hugging me. I hugged her back tightly before she pulled away, turning and walking off the way we came. Hello, Tempest dear. How are you doing? The day started like any other. Noel left early for a meeting with business partners. Work was going well for him, and he was happy. That, at least, lessened the guilt I always felt whenever I remembered what I had done to his company. Today, I decided on a simple yet elegant black dress. Mrs. Moriarty, Mr. Moriarty's wife, one of Noel's business partners, was coming over to dress and design. She wanted something custom-made for the upcoming fashion show event in a week's time. I was practically buzzing with excitement. I had already slipped into my black dress, its curvy neckline accentuating my figure, paired with my YSL heels, when my phone rang. Get Back by Britney Spears blared through the room, and it took everything in me not to dance to it. I picked up the call. It was Mitchell. Oh, hello, Mitchell, I greeted, still adjusting my dress in the mirror. I'm all right, what about you? I'm good, darling. Enjoying myself a little too much over here, she chuckled, and I heard the clink of ice against glass. Whiskey, no doubt. Oh, that's nice, I said, sitting on the edge of my bed, still holding the phone to my ear. I had no idea why she was calling, but I needed her to get to the point. Yeah, actually, I called to see if you'd like to come over. Maybe stay for lunch and dinner? Mitchell asked, her voice tinged with hope. Oh, today? I'm actually kinda packed. Tomorrow too, I sighed. You know, with the upcoming fashion event, everyone's on their toes. Including me. Fashion was my world, and I just knew Mama would have loved to attend as well. Oh dear, it doesn't have to be today or tomorrow. I know you're a busy woman and married too, so whenever you're free, she said, then hesitated before sighing. You know, your husband is a businessman, and you don't have parents anymore, so I just want to look after you. My stomach twisted. I didn't like that. Not one bit. But I kept my voice polite. All right then. Just send me the address. I've got to go. See you soon. I waited for her murmured okay before I ended the call. Picking up my purse, I left my room and made my way downstairs, where Mike was already waiting. As he grabbed the car keys, a ping echoed from my phone. I checked the screen. A message from Mitchell. I scowled at the address. It was way too far from home. But I had already promised. Mrs. Moriarty was a pain in the ass. Honestly. That woman didn't know what she wanted. We had to browse through styles on the web because nothing in our magazines satisfied her. After what felt like hours, we finally found a design that would take a week to finish 3 days if we worked fast. Luckily, I had a brilliant seamstress who knew how to work magic with fabric. She had already started on the dress. The next day was less stressful. The lady came with her husband, a man who kept looking at me and licking his lips like some disgusting, perverted toad. Thankfully, his wife got straight to the point about what she wanted and left quickly. That night, when I returned home, I was met with an unexpected sight: Noel in the kitchen. Cooking. You can cook? I asked incredulously, stepping closer. He looked effortlessly cool in just a t-shirt and sweatpants. I hardly ever saw him in those. I can do a lot of things, darling, he murmured, pulling me close before dropping a slow, lingering kiss on my lips. Taking my handbag from me, he led us upstairs. Would you like to shower first or just change? Just change, I sighed. I'm too tired and hungry to shower first. Noel chuckled, leaning against the wall as I changed into my pajama set. His gaze never left me, watching me intently, dark eyes filled with something I knew all too well. Lust. We'd been having sex regularly for the past few days, and yet, somehow, Noel was never fully satiated. As we walked downstairs, I told him, Mitchell invited me over to her place for dinner. Mitchell? He frowned, as if trying to place the name. Yes. My father's ex-mistress. I told you about her. The one on your Target wall. I joked. He nodded slowly. Oh, her. Are you sure going to her place is safe? I stepped closer, wrapping my arms around his neck. Yes, love. I'll be fine. Mitchell is not a bad person. Noel studied my face for a moment before sighing. Okay then. He leaned down and kissed me. I am going alone, Mike. I exhaled, leaning against the car hood while he stood firmly in front of me. Mitchell is a longtime friend. She would feel weird if I showed up with my husband's bodyguard. It'd be like I don't trust her. Mike didn't move an inch. You're going far, Mrs. Sinclair. If something happens to you, it'll be on me. Nothing will happen, okay? I insisted. I'll be fine. And if anything goes wrong, I have Noel's number. After a long pause and much convincing, he finally let me go. Using the car map, I navigated my way to Mitchell's house. She lived in an estate, a ridiculously expensive-looking one, at that. I parked near the gate and climbed down, approaching the security guards. One of them checked my message, then answered a call from Mitchell before letting me in. Oh dear, good to have you here, Mitchell greeted warmly, pulling me into an embrace as I stepped inside her home. Dinner is ready. You came way past lunch. I chuckled. That had been my plan. I didn't want to stay too long. We settled at the dining table, and I had to admit the food was drool-worthy. Halfway through dinner, Mitchell dabbed at her lips with a napkin and said casually, "Oh, I'd love for you to meet my husband as well." I froze mid-bite, staring at her. She chuckled at my expression. Of course, I have a husband, Tem. I mean, I left your father 7 months ago. That's more than enough time to marry another man. I shook my head. I didn't mean it like that. I was just surprised. Mitchell only laughed but didn't say anything more. After dinner, she suggested watching TV. I wasn't sure if she genuinely enjoyed the fashion channel or if she put it on for me, but either way, I watched. I was too invested in the show when the doorbell rang. The door opened, I turned to it. And my entire world stopped. My eyes widened. My stomach twisted into tight knots. Oh dear, you're back, Mitchell said, addressing the girl who walked in. But I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Mitchell turned to me, her smile stretching wide, almost sickeningly so. Meet my daughter, Nirvana. Noel's POV. The boardroom was tense. I didn't see a reason why it should be, but people were extra and dramatic. I had structured this meeting yesterday for this evening, and they all knew it. Yet, stepping inside the boardroom had everyone shivering like I was the devil himself. Let's begin. I gestured to my secretary, who walked to the projector board and started talking, gesturing animatedly with her hands. We were about to start something new, bringing Al into the Sinclair empire. My phone rang with an incoming call, something I hardly appreciated during work or meetings. I ignored it, letting it ring out. A notification pinged immediately after, and that's when I picked it up. It was my hackers. They had found the person behind the unknown number. I replied, telling them to send the details. The moment they did, my eyebrows shot up to my hairline. Mitchell Benn. The name alone sent a slow burn of realization through my chest. The picture that followed? It was the exact same woman I had seen the first time my wife escorted me to an event. The same woman who was plastered on my Target wall. I had feigned ignorance when Tempest asked about her, pretending I had let it go, but deep down, I had always known my hunch was right. The next message came. Nirvana Ben. My stomach twisted. A picture of Tempest's closest friend appeared beneath the name. Fuck. I cursed under my breath, but it wasn't quiet enough. Heads snapped toward me, my employees suddenly frozen in place. I thought that was the worst of it. Until the final message came. Mitchell Benn and her husband were the culprits behind Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood's deaths. Their home address followed. My blood went ice cold before boiling over into something furious and uncontrollable. Fuck, fuck, fuck. I swore, my voice thunderous. The walls of the boardroom might as well have crumbled with the force of my rage. It only hit me now. My wife was in her parents' murderer's house. I bolted from the boardroom without a care for whoever called after me. Nothing else mattered. I stormed to my car, yanking the door open and slamming. It shut behind me. The ignition roared to life, but my hands trembled with fury as I gripped the wheel. I snatched my phone, dialing Mike. He answered on the second ring. You had better be with my wife, I growled, my voice rough, deadly. There was a beat of silence before he spoke. I didn't go with Mrs. Sinclair. She ordered me not to. I squeezed my eyes shut, my teeth grinding together so hard they might crack. My hands clenched into fists, my knuckles turning white. Breathe, Noel. Don't lose it yet. But I did put a tracker on her, Mike added hastily. I've been watching it. There's nothing amiss. Shut the freaking fuck up, Mike. I exploded. Take 3 guards with you right now and go to my wife. If anything happens to my woman, I swear to God, I will kill you. I ended the call, throwing my phone onto the passenger seat before flooring the gas. My heart pounded like a war drum, rage licking up my spine like flames. By the time I reached my destination, my pulse was a wildfire. I stormed into my Target room, yanking open a drawer. My fingers closed around cold steel, and I pulled out my shotgun. If they wanted war, they would get war. Their worst mistake was touching what was mine. Tempest's POV. My heart pounded too loudly, too much, a relentless drumming against my skull. I groaned, willing my eyes to open, but they wouldn't obey just yet. I was tied. I could feel it, biting into my wrists, binding my body. The door swung open. Bright light from outside seared into my barely opened eyes. I blinked rapidly, squinting at the silhouette standing there. Then the door shut, and I saw her clearly. Nirvana. She walked closer, stopping right before me. A smirk curled her lips as she reached out, gripping my chin between her thumb and forefinger, tilting my head up. Never thought I'd see you like this. She snickered, her voice laced with cruel amusement. This wasn't the Nirvana I knew. Why are you doing this? My voice was barely a whisper. Rough from dehydration. I didn't understand. Shock had nearly paralyzed me when I found out Nirvana was Mitchell's daughter. But now, piecing everything together? It was almost worse. We became friends right after my father discarded Mitchell. How had I not known? How had I not noticed the flashing signs? The girl. You're the one, right? Nirvana's brows furrowed. What girl? The worker I fired. My voice was hoarse, but I pushed through. You're the one who killed her, aren't you? Nirvana chuckled, then shook her head like I was a foolish child. Oh, that? That was dear old Daddy. She rolled her eyes. I'd rather not dirty my hands with blood. Daddy's been doing it a lot. Anyway, it was just a warning for what's to come. But, sweet Tempest, you never heed warnings. She sighed, as if she truly pitied me, tapping my cheek twice. What we had, my throat burned with thirst. Was it ever real? Nirvana groaned, exasperated. Oh, please don't start with that sentimental bullshit. Of course it wasn't real, love. It was never real. Her fingers released my chin, and my head dropped to the side like dead weight. Daddy's coming in soon. Be prepared. And as if her words had summoned him, the door creaked open again. Mitchell walked in. That same sick smile stretched across her lips. But my stomach clenched when I saw the man behind her. The second he stepped into the light, a chill raced down my spine, cutting into me like ice. My breath hitched. I felt like I would die of a heart attack from the repeated shocks before Mitchell even got the chance to end me. Because the man who walked in was none other than Pepe. Surprise, surprise! Mitchell chuckled, striding further into the room with Pepe. Nirvana stood by the door, her eyes seething with a hatred I couldn't explain. It was the kind of look you'd give someone who had stolen your man, sharp, venomous, and unrelenting. Pepe walked past me and settled onto a couch I hadn't even realized was in the room. Meanwhile, Mitchell pulled out a chair like she owned the place and sat before me, her smirk unwavering. I know you're a hell of a lot surprised, dear. I'll explain, okay? Why was she talking to me like I was some petulant child in need of a lesson? Like I had done something wrong? And worse, why was she smiling when she was about to shatter my entire world? You know, we had a son too, my husband and I. She sighed, her expression softening, though it felt more calculated than genuine. But then your father killed him. My brows furrowed. What are you talking about? I spat, my stomach nodding. Nero had cancer. Stage 2. It was curable when we first found out. But do you know why we couldn't save him? We didn't have the money. She paused, frowning before she continued, voice thick with bitterness. That was a year ago. Pepe was already your father's right-hand man by then, but his salary was barely enough. It wasn't even enough for feeding, let alone curing our son. That's a lie, I snapped. My father is a good man, and Pepe's salary was always 5 figures more than he paid anyone else. Are you seriously telling me that $50,000 every fucking month wasn't enough to feed your family? My mouth fell open at the sheer audacity of this woman. Well, obviously, she rolled her eyes, smacking her lips like I was the fool. But then your father handed us an opportunity when he told Pepe to find him a good mistress. She chuckled, then leaned in closer, her breath ghosting over my face. I quite enjoyed your father's she sneered. He was so fucking good in bed. I swallowed back the hateful words clawing at my throat. The disgust burned through me like acid. How could a husband give his wife to another man as a mistress? What were these people? Did Nirvana know about this too? Anyway, it was a good opportunity he paid me. His wife probably didn't satisfy him enough. Don't talk about my mother that way, I growled, my jaw tightening. I still remembered the near divorce my parents had over his affair. My mother had been devastated. She was willing to take it to court, to end things, until my father broke it off with Mitchell. I thought it had ended there. Anyway, she shrugged, brushing off my anger like it was insignificant. Around that time, Pepe asked him for money, but he refused. He gave, I cut her off. My father would have given Pepe any amount of money he asked for. And how would you know that? Mitchell arched a brow. Because I saw the papers, narrowed my eyes. My father liked to keep records of important things like the $6 million he wired into Pepe's account. You couldn't heal your son with that amount too? That was just an advance payment. That wasn't for the treatment. Did you forget we were living, too? Mitchell suddenly yelled. I scoffed, then let out a laugh, sharp, incredulous. But before I could say another word, she slapped me. The sting spread across my cheek like wildfire, but I refused to react. Pepe stood, moving to stand beside his wife. In conclusion, he growled, "Your father killed my son because he was a greedy bastard who couldn't give up a little change." It was an Eve for an Eve. Dear Tempest. A life for two. He threw his head back and laughed, a manic, unhinged sound that sent a chill racing down my spine. My eyes burned with unshed tears, my chest tightening as realization set in. They killed my parents. Pepe, my father's closest friend. And Mitchell, his ex-mistress. They murdered them. Silent tears trailed down my face, but then I started laughing. Nothing was funny. Nothing at all. But I laughed and laughed, until my throat ached, until my vision blurred, until the twisted little family before me stared at me like I had lost my damn mind. "What's with the bitch now?" Nirvana sneered. I lifted my gaze, locking eyes with Pepe first. "This is ridiculous," I said, watching his face darken. "You all are so fucking ridiculous. My father killed your son?" "No," I scoffed, "you killed your own fucking son with your greed and selfishness." I turned my head, staring at each of them, before my eyes landed back on Pepe. "I can't believe you did this, betrayed my father's trust." My voice shook with fury. "You're going to rot in the deepest part of hell, Pepe." Mitchell's palm met my face again, snapping my head to the side. I slowly turned back, my gaze locking onto Nirvana's. I mirrored the hatred in her eyes, shoving it right back at her. "I was a fool," I muttered, "to trust you. To believe you were actually my friend. To give my heart to someone who tore it out. I hate myself for it." Then I looked at her mother. "Killing my parents wasn't enough? Now you're coming for me and my brother too?" I gathered spit in my mouth and spat at her. Mitchell screeched like I had just stomped on her foot. "Your husband doesn't love you, Mitchell." My voice was cold. "If he did, he never would have given you to another man, monetarily or not. Wake up." Mitchell clenched her jaw, her teeth grinding together, my words digging into her like daggers. But before the full weight of them could settle, she laughed an eerie, unsettling sound and stood. Without another word, she strode out of the room. I didn't know what she was planning next. But I had a feeling whatever it was, wasn't good. I knew exactly what I meant when I said Mitchell was up to no good. Mitchell came back into the room, dragging my brother by his hair. Tyler had always liked to keep his hair long, which, at this moment, didn't serve him well. My heart swelled strangely at the sight of my brother in the flesh. He was still alive, and that sent a wave of relief through me. He was still alive and well, and we could still escape this crazed family. Tyler's gaze mirrored mine, filled with familial longing and heartache. Before we could even speak, he was shoved to the ground in front of me. Pepe snickered, marching toward him. "You think your brother's coming back to you? Think again." With that, Pepe began punching my brother as if he were nothing more than a punching bag. Blood spewed from Tyler's mouth, and I screamed. "What do you want? Do you still want to kill him?" Mitchell and Nirvana laughed, clearly enjoying my distress. The beating went on for some time before a loud boom echoed through the house. It was as if time had stopped. The twisted family of three exchanged looks before bolting from the room as though their pants were on fire. Tyler spat out another mouthful of blood before slowly crawling to his feet. He had always been strong and muscular, and scars ones I knew were from ropes, just like mine, marred his body. "Tempest," he grunted, untying the rope around my wrists. Once that was done, he moved to my legs. The moment I was free, I jumped onto him, enveloping him in the tightest hug possible. Tyler chuckled, then winced. I realized I might have touched an injured spot, so I released him. He stood up first, then pulled me up with him. "Who do you think that was?" he asked as I draped his arm over my shoulder. "What?" "The bomb. Who do you think set it off?" "Oh. Maybe it was my husband." Tyler's head snapped toward me. "You have a husband?" I grinned sheepishly. I have a lot to tell you, but let's get out of here first. We limped toward the door, about to open it, when it burst open from the outside, nearly knocking us over. Pepe stepped inside. As he walked toward us, we instinctively took steps back. He looked insane mad, like someone who would kill without hesitation, if the way he was cracking his knuckles was anything to go by. I bit my lip, sweating profusely. My hands turned clammy. Pepe, please, I began. I know you're mad about your son, but please, remember my father was once your friend. Pepe let out a loud, mocking laugh. My friend? Your father was never my friend. But. Stop, Thames, Tyler interrupted, pushing me aside. Run. Find your husband. I'll take care of this bastard. But you're injured. Are you sure? I asked worriedly. Forgot I'm a boxer, sis? He smirked. Oh, this boy. Pepe scoffed. I turned to run, and before Pepe could reach for me, Tyler grabbed him by the collar. I didn't see what happened next as I was already gone. I sprinted through the corridors, emerging into the sitting room, which was in complete chaos. Bullets flew in every direction. I quickly took cover, spotting Kyle and Mike among the shooters. Noel's men were here. The last thing I wanted was to be killed by a stray bullet. Crawling on the floor, I searched for an escape route. Just as I reached a certain point, a tight grip on my hair yanked me back. A scream tore from my throat, halting the gunfire as Mitchell dragged me to my feet by my hair. Tears burned at the corners of my eyes. Then, in my peripheral vision, I caught the glint of something sharp. Mitchell was holding me at knife point. The room fell into a pin-drop silence. Noel slowly rose from his hiding spot. My heart clenched at the sight of him. Though he was bleeding from his temple, he still looked every bit like my Noel. His eyes met mine, and he nodded. Mitchell tightened her grip on me. Drop your fucking weapons. All of you. At this point, I doubted she even knew whether her men were still alive. Noel nodded at his men, and they slowly lowered their weapons. No. Mitchell would kill me. This woman was past livid, she was crazed. I was sure she would actually do it. Mitchell, I pleaded, my voice small and shaky. Mitchell, please. Think about this. Of the pa. I screamed when the knife pressed deeper into my neck. I felt a warm liquid trail down to my collarbone and the valley between my breasts. Shut the fuck up, you bitch, she whispered in my ear. Then, she yelled at the men, leave. All of you get the fuck out of my house right now. Noel looked distressed, clearly contemplating his next move. If I told him to lift his gun, Mitchell might be faster and slit my throat before he could fire. If he left, she might relax, giving me a chance to escape. So, pressing my lips together, I nodded for him to leave. I was going to survive. Somehow the men hesitated before slowly stepping back toward the door. Then, suddenly, a loud shattering echoed behind me, followed by a heavy thump. The hold on my neck was gone. Mitchell collapsed to the floor, clutching the back of her head, which bled profusely as she wailed. I turned toward the figure who had saved me, Tyler. He looked worse than before, more bloodied, barely able to stand. He stumbled, falling to the ground. But he was alive. Tempest. Noel called. I whirled toward him and crashed into his arms. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, love, he whispered, holding me tightly. I buried my face in his neck as he continued murmuring his apologies. Pulling away slightly, I cupped his face in my hands. There's nothing to be sorry for, love. I kissed him, whispering the words again between kisses. The bitch is still alive, Tyler groaned from the floor. I turned to him. He nodded weakly. I'm all right, Tempest. Noel nudged me, and I looked back at him. He held out a shotgun. I knew how to use one. Father had made Tyler and me practice with guns. Do you want to do it, wife? End her for good? I glanced at Noel. Fury was etched onto his face as he looked at my neck. Then, at Tyler, who was barely conscious but still breathing. Finally, I looked at Mitchell, who stared at me with a mixture of fear and hatred. I slowly took the gun from Noel's hands. Blood was about to be on my hands. But it was for the greater good. Raising the gun, I aimed at her head and pulled the trigger 3 times. Mitchell now had 3 holes in her forehead. Noel's men entered the room, dragging out Pepe's lifeless body. Tyler and I had finished this. We had avenged our parents. A screaming Nirvana was pulled from one of the rooms. She froze when she saw her parents' corpses. I should have felt pity. But why should I? She had aided in my parents' murder while pretending to be my friend. She had been with me that same night knowing full well her parents had planned to kill mine. So why should I feel pity? She was dragged away. I was too numb to care about what they would do to her. Noel stepped in front of me, shielding me from the bloody scene. He kissed my lips and whispered, "My men will take care of it." I nodded. Another kiss. "You did well, darling. Let's go home." A month later. My Louboutin heels clacked against the polished floor as I walked into Blackwood Tech. It was near lunchtime, yet the employees, still seated, rose to greet me. I gave them all a curt nod before slipping into the elevator that led to my father's office. Once it pinged open, I stepped out and found the respective office. I didn't bother knocking, I simply opened the door and slipped inside. My eyes landed on my brother, kissing the hell out of one of his employees. I cleared my throat pointedly. The woman gasped, her face turning crimson as she spun around. She stammered out a greeting, bowed her head, mumbled an excuse, and practically bolted from the office. "Have the decency to knock, sis," Tyler teased, a lazy grin on his face as he rounded his desk and sank into his chair. "Don't be silly," I chastised, shaking my head. "You haven't even fully regained control of the company, and you're already going around kissing your employees?" "Not every employee. Just her," he shrugged, utterly unbothered. "I like her. And I need to get married soon." I snorted, dropping the takeaway bag I had brought with me onto his desk. "I brought you food. You're such a darling." He groaned dramatically as he pushed back from his desk and sat forward. Then, with narrowed eyes, he asked, "Did you cook it, though? Or is it bought?" I scoffed. The audacity of this young man. "You always seem to forget that I came out before you," I said, twitching my lips in mock offense. "Anyway, it's from a 5-star Michelin restaurant. If you want homemade food, get a wife." I slapped his arm, and he pouted like a child before digging into the bag, pulling out one of the plates. "Why get a wife when I have a sister?" "A sister who is married, thank you very much," I chuckled, my mind drifting to Noel. "Oh. Please don't." Tyler groaned suddenly. "What? That look. That ridiculous, sappy, in-love look. Please, don't give it to me." I rolled my eyes with a laugh, shaking my head as I stood up. "I'll be leaving. I only came to drop this off because I know you'll never get food for yourself. You're such a workaholic, just like father." I sighed, stepping around the coffee table. After the whole ordeal with Mitchell and her family, Tyler and I had visited our parents' graves again. "See you soon, sis." "Sure," I said, slipping out. Noel's men had indeed taken care of Mitchell and Pepe's bodies. The news of Pepe's death remained silent. Some employees assumed he had been fired, while others knew the truth. But Mitchell was a different story. People had known her, and people knew she was dead. The news shook a few. As for Nirvana, she had been placed in a mental institution. It was worse than prison, considering she wasn't truly insane, but could you blame the authorities? We had pinned her parents' deaths on her, and she had played her part to perfection. So instead of the prison we had planned for her, she was locked away in an institution. Hopefully, she wouldn't escape. Once Tyler had healed enough, he took over Blackwood Tech, easing my workload. He wasn't fully recovered, but, as I said, he was a workaholic just like father. Meanwhile, I had fully immersed myself in dress design. Walking into the garage, I immediately spotted Noel's sleek blue car. He had many cars, all in different colors. He leaned against the hood, looking effortlessly refined in a gray dress shirt and black pants. The moment he spotted me, he slid off his sunglasses. Without a word, he reached for my hand, leading me to the driver's seat. I looked up at him, my brows raised slightly, a small smile playing on my lips. "You haven't driven in a long time," he noted. "A month ago is long?" I chuckled but slipped into the car anyway. He moved to the passenger seat. "But I don't know the way," I admitted, glancing at him. "I'll direct you." We were going to the orphanage where Noel's nephew lived. We had decided to visit him. I started the ignition and drove out. Nearly an hour later, after winding through countless turns, we finally reached Serenity Orphanage. I parked in the compound, and we got out, heading toward the receptionist inside. "Maxwell Sinclair." "He's my nephew," Noel said. The woman furrowed her brows before realization dawned on her. "Oh. I know who you're talking about, but he's not a Sinclair here. He's a Timothy." Noel and I exchanged a look before he turned back to her and nodded. The receptionist stood and led us inside. As we climbed the staircase, Noel leaned down, whispering in my ear. "Timothy is my brother's birth name." I nodded, filing that information away. We arrived at a large room filled with children between 5 to 10. As stated on the door. Laughter and chatter filled the air, but the moment the receptionist called out, "Maxwell Timothy," the noise quieted, and a small boy stepped forward. The resemblance between him and Noel was uncanny. It was undeniable. Noel and his brother must have looked incredibly alike. The receptionist gave a small nod before walking back the way we had come. "Maxwell," Noel called, crouching to the boy's level. "I'm your uncle, Noel." Maxwell blinked up at him. "Uncle?" "God." His voice was soft as hell. "Yes, Uncle," Noel confirmed, reaching out to take the boy's tiny hands. "Uncle wants to take you home. Do you want to come with me?" I gasped inaudibly. He hadn't told me he wanted to adopt him. I had already been planning to beg him to do just that, but he had beaten me to it. Noel turned slightly, his eyes meeting mine, and I gave him a look so full of love it felt like my heart might burst. "Yes, Uncle," Maxwell said after a pause. Then, without hesitation, he wrapped his tiny arms around Noel's neck before pulling away and running toward me. He latched onto my legs, unable to reach any higher. My heart swelled. I scooped him up, pressing kisses to both his cheeks and his forehead. "I'm Auntie Tem." "Auntie Tem," he repeated, nodding solemnly. Noel led us back downstairs. I was certain the decision to adopt Maxwell had been made on a whim. There would still be documents to sign. But Noel handled them swiftly, and soon, we left with the little boy. Maxwell wasn't just my husband's nephew anymore. He was my son too, even if I wasn't his mother. A year later. "Come on now, Maxie. Come put on your shoes." I called for my 2-year-old daughter Maxine, and soon enough, I heard the tiny pitter-patter of her feet as she ran toward me. "Mummy." Her vocabulary was still limited to just a few words: mummy, dada, and Max, but our 7-year-old, Maxwell, was diligently teaching her more each day. She was dressed in a soft pink tutu dress, and I knelt to slip on her tiny shoes before standing again. Noel came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, his hands resting protectively over my 1-month pregnancy. It wasn't showing yet, but he knew. He always knew. He pressed a kiss to my neck just as Maxwell came bounding into the room. "Are we ready, Mummy?" My heart swelled, as it always did whenever Maxwell called me that. Over time, Auntie Tem and Uncle Noel had naturally become Mummy and Daddy. I knew he longed for parental love, and Noel and I had given it to him wholeheartedly. He had grown taller, almost too tall for a 7-year-old, and I could already tell he was going to inherit his father's and uncle's impressive height. I took Maxine's tiny hand while Noel held Maxwell's, and together, we headed toward the garage. I had set up a fashion show event for dress design. Over the past year, we had made unimaginable sales, and I wanted to host something special, especially since I had missed the previous one while taking care of Tyler. Tyler, who had ended up in the hospital for more reasons than one. Malnutrition. Stress. You name it. It was a miracle he had pulled through safely. As we reached the garage, Maxine and Maxwell both let go of our hands and ran toward Tyler, who was standing beside his wife, the very same employee he had once joked about marrying. Imagine my shock when he actually proposed, and then married her. Uko Taiwa. Maxine squealed, wrapping her tiny arms around Tyler's leg, while Maxwell Arabed the other. I chuckled. I thought you'd already be at the venue. Didn't want to miss seeing what my niece and nephew looked like first, he teased with a grin. I shook my head at his antics, then hugged Maria, his wife, kissing her cheeks before stepping back. All right then, let's go. I was the star of the show, yet I arrived later than my own guests. After the opening speech, which was briefly interrupted by a few people congratulating me on my pregnancy, I knew people would notice. The show finally began. One by one, models walked the runway, each adorned in designs I had personally hand-picked. Every piece told a story, every step on that stage a testament to the hard work my team and I had put in. When the runway show wrapped up about 2 hours later, I stepped out with the entire dress design team, bowing to the audience in gratitude. Then came the dinner party, a perfect networking opportunity. Not for me or Noel, but for anyone looking to expand their social circle. 30 minutes into mingling, Noel approached me, a certain glint in his eyes. He politely excused me from the conversation I was in, then pulled me aside. Busy? He asked, tilting his head. I shook my head. Not really. Is something wrong? Nope, he said, a small smile playing on his lips. I just want to show you something back home. My eyes lit up. Oh, like a surprise? Noel nodded, and I squealed in delight. Before we could leave, we found Tyler stuffing Maxine and Maxwell full of sweets. That man. Maxine. Maxwell. It's time to leave. I called. Maxine, perched comfortably in Tyler's arms, shook her head, her lips covered in icing as if she had applied lipstick. Maxwell, the more level-headed of the two, turned to us with those irresistible puppy dog eyes. Mummy, can we stay with Uncle Tyler? He'll bring us back later? Daddy, please? I felt Noel sigh behind me. All right. Then, he relented, and Maxwell broke into a wide grin, a grin that looked exactly like Noel's. Tyler, bring them home in 30 minutes, Noel warned. Yes, sir, Tyler chuckled. Maxwell hugged both of us, and I kissed Maxine's icing-covered cheeks. She was never one to cry when we left. She loved people too much for that. With Noel's hand in mine, we left the event and headed home. The moment we arrived, Noel led me upstairs to the library. I frowned slightly. What is he up to now? He walked straight toward the bookshelf, the same one I had the day he showed me that picture I didn't want to think about. My confusion deepened when he gripped the spine of a book, pulled it down, and the bookshelf shifted, parting to reveal a hidden door. I gasped. A secret door? Noel chuckled at my reaction, still holding my hand as he led me inside. The sight before me brought happy tears to my eyes. A round table sat in the center of the room, covered in pristine white linen, with 2 chairs draped in matching fabric. A bottle of red wine and 2 glasses were already set, waiting for us. Noel pulled out a chair for me, seating me before taking his own. Then, with the push of a button hidden beneath the table, soft, warm lighting filled the space. I blinked back more tears. He had planned this. When did you prepare this? I asked, my voice thick with emotion. A day ago, he said, uncorking the wine. I wanted it done for this special day, which also happens to be your birthday, baby. I gasped, the tears I had been holding finally spilling over. I had truly thought he had forgotten. Over the past year, Noel and I had grown even closer, sharing more intimacy than ever before. When I had woken up this morning and he hadn't wished me happy birthday, I had been disappointed. I had wanted this day to feel special in every way, even though it was also Tyler's birthday. But Tyler had never minded sharing. Noel reached for my hand, his thumb grazing my knuckles. "Happy birthday, wife," he murmured before leaning in, kissing me softly. I kissed him back, pouring all my love into it. "I thought you forgot," I whispered when he wiped my tears away. "I could never forget anything about you, love," he promised. I let out a small, breathy laugh before standing and walking around the table. I wrapped my arms around him tightly, burying my face in his chest. "I love you, Noel. I love you too, Tempest." And then, we sealed our promise with a passionate kiss. Today's story is over. Thank you all for listening.